How is everybody doing on this lovely Monday? So I have my earphones and my mic here, or I have my earphones on because I'm not sure if Evgeny is going to be joining us today. So we'll wait and see if he shows up, and if he doesn't, I can take off these stupid headphones. So can I just check? Can you hear me? We've got Mark. Mark's here already. So Mark, just let me know, can you hear me okay? Just want to make sure everything is coming through. Say, yeah, Gigi, we can hear you loud and clear. That would be great. Okay, I think it takes a couple of seconds for that request. Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Icho. I really appreciate that. Oh, do you know, I'm a little bit worried about Evgeny. Hope he's okay. He's probably just forgotten about me. I'm so forgettable. All right, so why don't we just kick off, and then if Evgeny doesn't show up, I can take off these stupid headphones, because I feel like, you know, when you're underwater and you talk underwater and you can hear kind of the weird vibrating sounds of your voice echoing in your ears. That's how this feels. So maybe it won't be so bad when he's here. Right, so, sorry, getting overexcited with my hands as always. Why don't we just give it a minute or two for everybody else to show up, and maybe Evgeny to show up. I'll say hello, a few things like that, and then we'll get going. So let me just go through and say hello to people. Please do let me know where you are coming in from today. I always love to hear how far Tinternet, as my little old granny used to call it, bless her, she was... she died not long after the advent of the internet, horrific as I know that sounds in terms of how old I must be. But yeah, she called it Tinternet. It was very cute. Right, so let me say hello to a few people before we get going. So we have Mark's here. Hello, Mark. How are you? Icho. Oh, Icho, you're headed for a final on-site for an L6 p.m. non-tech. Awesome. Very, very exciting. Hicham, hello, how are you doing? Who else do we have? Shannon, hello Shannon. And so Jay Wilson, great, welcome. I'm not recognizing any of these names today, so that's really exciting for me. I love it when new people join us. Ember Roan, GT, hello. Magdalena, hey Magdalena. All right, Magdalena, you've got a question, I'll come back to that. Talha, hello, how are you doing? Ayatona, very nice to meet you. Welcome. Sumit, Elena, hello. Shivam, hello. Oh, you want me to explain to you about the split interview process? Yep, I will do that. No problem. Oh, Mark, you're from Seattle. Ah, very nice. I do love Seattle. Love Seattle. Not sure I'd come and live there, but I did love Seattle. If I had to live in the States, Seattle would probably be my choice. Who else do we have? Michael, hello from Toronto. Oh, Elena, you're from Greece. Lovely. I'm a classicist by education, so everything Greek is exciting to me. Okay, so, what else do we have? Okay, right, I tell you what, why don't we just get going? I get the feeling Evgeny is not going to be joining us, so I'm going to take off these headphones, which, to be fair, are hiding a multitude of sins with my terrible hair, but never mind. Let me get these off. That's much better. There we go. I feel like I've surfaced from underwater. Right, quick kind of sort out the hair there. Right, so why don't we just get going, and then whoever joins us, joins us. So, as you all know, I am Gigi, and here at Day One Careers, I am a co-founder and an ex-Amazon bar raiser. In terms of Day One Careers, effectively, it's a little business that was created relatively recently between myself and Evgeny. Evgeny had a similar business to mine not so long ago, and we came together, if any of you know the Amazon Interview With kind of history. So Day One Careers effectively came about because both Evgeny and myself independently were Amazonians. I was a bar raiser, he was a hiring manager, and we did a lot of interviewing. I did a lot of bar raising. And whilst we were interviewing / bar raising, we could see the difference that it made to candidates who had got kind of expert interview preparation coaching. And independently of each other, we didn't even know each other. We kind of started providing coaching to candidates, somewhat kind of off the record. And I personally started looking into how much it actually cost to get professional interview coaching for Amazon, and discovered it was not cheap. You know, you could pay many thousands of dollars to get my type of expertise. I felt that was unfair, and I created and started up my own little YouTube channel. From that, when I left Amazon, I built my own kind of Amazon interview preparation business, as did Evgeny. We came together very recently, and effectively what we try and do at Day One Careers is make expert Amazon interview coaching, the likes of mine and Evgeny's and a couple of the other coaches we have working with us, accessible to everyone. So you don't need many thousands of dollars in order to get expert coaching. We obviously have our YouTube channel, which has many, many, many hours of content available. We do these free sessions. We also have our own little, I can't call it academy anymore because it's not my academy, but we own a little business where we offer a program of paid digital courses, which we aim to make incredibly affordable and accessible. So through all of that, plus LinkedIn and other places, Twitter, where we put out content, we try and give you as much value as possible. This session today is part of that, where effectively, if you haven't been here before, what happens is, oh, Evgeny's here. Yay, he's here.
Hello. Sorry for being late, guys.
Wow. Hang on, I can't hear you. They probably can. There we go.
Can you guys hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Need to just turn my volume.
What are we doing, Gigi? What are we doing?
Okay, I was just about to tell everyone how this whole thing works. I'm so happy you're here. Right, so this is my partner in crime, Evgeny, everyone. I was just telling you about him. So we won't go through Evgeny's backstory. I've told them all about you and how we ended up together. They know the whole story. So we're moving on. Everybody, if you have a question, what you can do is just drop it into the comments section there on what is the right-hand side of my screen anyway. And effectively, what Evgeny and I will do is scroll our way through your questions, pick up the ones that we feel that we can answer, and answer your questions for you. A couple of caveats with that. Please don't ask us very generic questions. Hi, Gigi, Evgeny, I've got an interview tomorrow. Any tips? For sure, many hours of them, and they're all on the YouTube channel. So please don't ask generic questions like that. Also, we may not be able to answer incredibly specific questions around your particular job family and the exact nature of the types of questions, as an example, you might get at your interview. There are tens of thousands, I think, of job families in Amazon. And even between the two of us, we couldn't possibly know the deep detail of all of those. But in the main, I think we managed to answer about 90% of the questions that are ever asked of us on these sessions. So put your question in and we will have a go at it. And please do stay until the end. We have the internet's best freebie when it comes to Amazon interview preparation, and we will give that to you at the end. So please do not abandon us before securing that amazing freebie. So with that said, Evgeny, why don't we start scrolling down and having a look at what we can see? I did promise somebody a minute ago that I would cover off this. So I'm going to do this one from Magdalena. Such a beautiful name, Magdalena. Love that name. So what about stage one, odd behavioral questions? Now I'm thinking maybe that's a typo, Magdalena, because I'm not quite sure what an odd behavioral question would be. And if you did get said odd behavioral question, it could possibly be an HR issue. So I'm going to imagine you didn't mean odd and you meant something along the lines of, can you expect behavioral questions? So I'm just going to assume that's what you meant. So stage one, first, again, stage one, open to interpretation. What is stage one? Stage one for some people could be a recruiter screen. For other people, it could be an online assessment. For other people, it could be their first phone screen. So again, I'm afraid, Magdalena, I'm just going to make your question up for you. So I'm going to assume you're asking me about your first phone screen. And can you expect behavioral questions at your first phone screen? And the answer is unhelpfully, maybe. And why I say maybe is actually first phone screens are not particularly heavily regulated, put it that way. There's no bar raiser oversight. And although there are obviously some key goals that an interviewer has at the first phone screen, how they get to that kind of end decision is relatively flexible. So very much dependent on your job family and even your team and even your interviewer, you might expect different things. So some people at the first phone screen will just get those interview kind of annoying introductory interview questions like, tell me about yourself, why Amazon, walk me through your resume, and then maybe a behavioral question. Or you might get all of those introductory questions and no behavioral questions at all, but maybe some functional questions about your skill set and your capabilities. You might even get no introductory questions and behavioral and functional, or you might just get completely behavioral questions. Unfortunately, it is very much dependent on your interviewer and your team. So I'm afraid you're going to have to be prepared for anything when it comes to that first round. Don't assume anything will or won't happen, and then you will never be underprepared. I believe the saying goes that nobody ever regretted being overprepared. Okay, so that answers that question. Evgeny, do you want to, I'll put my...
Yeah, I've got one. I've got one here. This is an interesting one. So I know this one is addressed to you. Maybe we can both see if we can answer it. So E. Cho, hello, is asking, so their first interview at the Loop is with the skip lead. And I assume that the skip in this context means skip level, the manager of the hiring manager. And so, or maybe it's the VP of, or the director of the team, who knows. I'm sure the advice is to treat it as any other interview, but I'm wondering if the job seeker Gigi would approach it differently. So I'll tell you, you know what, I'm going to answer this question with a little story from my own hiring history at Amazon, and then I'll tell you exactly kind of how the job seeker Evgeny would approach it. But then, you know, perhaps Gigi will weigh in as well. So in one of my loops, when I was hiring someone, my boss decided to invite himself to the Loop, which I didn't sort of make much of it, but the bar raiser in my Loop asked me, you know, is there any reason why your boss is attending the Loop? As if I had a choice of disinviting my boss from the Loop. Apparently I did. But anyway, so my boss invited himself to my Loop and wasn't in favor of hiring one of the candidates. I was in favor of hiring that candidate because I was impressed. My bar raiser was in favor of hiring that candidate. And my boss was not in favor of bringing that candidate in. And as soon as the rest of the panel heard that my boss was not in favor of bringing that candidate in, they quickly changed their votes and said that they were not in favor of bringing that candidate in. What did we do in the end? We brought the candidate in because, surprise, the only decision that actually mattered was the bar raisers and mine. And then the bar raiser had to have a little conversation with my boss about, you know, the lay of the land and how things work at Amazon. What's also interesting is that the person who we hired, he's still at Amazon and he's doing exceptionally well. And he's been moved around in jobs of varying responsibility, which only happens, and really, really good jobs, which only happens when you score yourself the best rating at Amazon. And my boss, just before I left Amazon, called me and said that he was wrong. And so, you know, the moral of the story is that you should aim for a very consistent interview performance with everyone in the loop, and remind yourself that at the end of the day, it is the hiring managers and the bar raisers decision at the end that matters. And what also is important is that, yes, of course, when, you know, if the VP or a very senior stakeholder ends up being in the debrief, of course, we are all human beings. We're going to be looking up to people with higher status, and which is why it is even more important for you to make sure that all those other people who will find themselves in a debrief situation with a person with higher status will be supportive of you, so that if, God forbid, the super senior leader is not in favor, so that he or she is the absolute minority. So to be honest, the guidance for me stays make sure to deliver an absolute, consistent, high performance in all the interviews. Gigi, do you have anything else?
Well, I have the story from the different angle where I was the candidate. And in my interview loop, joining Amazon, I did actually get interviewed by my skip manager. So slightly similar situation to the one Icho is talking about, except that mine was even higher stakes because I was actually called back to meet the VP after the debrief because they could not agree on an outcome for me at debrief. So I was asked to come back and meet with my boss's boss so that he could share his opinion on the matter. In terms of how I approached that meeting with the VP, who was my skip manager, it was exactly as I approached all the others. To Evgeny's point, you have to be consistent, and they're not looking for anything different to what your bar raiser is looking for, your hiring manager, or any of the other interviewers. The only thing that offered me an opportunity to do that I'm not sure I made the most of at the time, but in hindsight, I wish I had, and therefore I give you the gift of this advice, is we always coach people to use question time to gather the data that they need to make a very important decision. And one of the things that we coach people to use in question time is to try and understand about their hiring manager. What is their management style? What would it be like to work with them? And of course, you'll ask that question of the other people on your panel, and those people will be his direct reports, or I say him because my boss was a he, but be their direct reports, or be direct reports of their direct reports, or be more junior peers than your manager. Very rarely are they in a more senior role than your manager. When you're talking to someone who's in a more senior role than their manager, in terms of some of the dynamics that Evgeny was just talking about there, in terms of the influence that person has over those individuals, and therefore the level of maybe openness and honesty they might give you in terms of their leadership style, would be very different than if you got the same question answered by their management. So I would suggest you use that opportunity to ask your manager's manager their perspective on your manager. So, what are the strengths and weaknesses of your manager's team? What's your manager's management style? Be sensitive about the types of questions that you ask, but that gives you a very unique opportunity to get a very unique perspective on your manager. I think that's the only thing I'll add. Okay, we move on to the next question then, Evgeny?
Yes, we should.
I'm going to pick this one because I promised Siobhan that I would do that before you joined. What is a split interview process? Okay, so split loop is effectively where you are in the interview process for two different teams, but in probably very similar roles. If you are invited to loop for both of those teams, what they can opt to do, or what you can possibly request they do, is combine those two interviews into a single loop, which sounds a bit counterintuitive because it's called split loop, and therefore you'd think it was in two parts, but it's not. It's two brought into one. So I don't know why they call it split loop. They should call it a merged loop or something, but hey ho, wouldn't be the first Amazon word that didn't make any sense to me. So what effectively happens is you have one loop, and there are representatives from both of those teams on your interview panel. The first decision they have to make is, are you raising the bar? Just conceptually, are you raising the bar at that level for that particular job family that you're interviewing for? Once they've decided, are you raising the bar? Yes. Then they go on to have a follow-up conversation around, given that you are raising the bar, does one or the other team appear to be a better functional fit for you? Or does one or the other team have other strong candidates that they feel very confident about being able to secure? And they'll make a decision between them as to whether they want to offer you both or just one of the roles. If they offer you just one, yay, you got a job offer, very nice. If they offer you both roles, what I then recommend you do, and we recommend you do, is have follow-up chats with the hiring managers for both of those roles. Do what we call a reverse interview and find out a little bit more about those roles, and then you can make your decision there and then. But as I say, that's the first decision they have to make, is whether you are bar raising or not. One team cannot decide that you're bar raising for them, and the other team decides that you're not bar raising for them. The first decision is, are you bar raising? Then they have to decide whether they want to offer you one or both of the roles. Okay, hope that helps. Right, moving on then. We do have someone who has given us a little bit of a super chat here. I don't know if you can see that, Evgeny. Right at the top, you can see someone's dropped in a little super chat, which is Sphinx.
Ooh.
Yes, exciting. So what super chats do, everybody, if you didn't know, and I'm not sure I've told Evgeny this either. So super chats, the visitor puts a little bit of money in the pot, and what it does is it bumps up their question to the top so they can make sure that their question gets spotted, because quite often we don't have enough time to answer all the questions. So we need to answer this question for Sphinx. All right.
I can see it. Yeah,
Yeah, do you want to see that one?
Yes, I can. The only thing is, because I can't beam it on the screen, so
No,
I'm gonna.
Let me see if I can find it. Whilst you're answering it, I'm going to scroll and see if I can find it further down.
Yeah, let's see if we can do it. I'll start. So let me read it out first. So, hi Gigi, here you are. I got a verbal offer on Friday for I would imagine it's an AM from the recruiter. FYI, your vids are awesome, Gigi.
Yay! Congratulations! Woo!
Well done. How do I negotiate pay? To be honest, it already seems good, but I think you've said before not to accept the first offer. Yes, I think you've been watching Gigi's videos really well. So I don't know, Gigi, how do we want to handle? Do you want me to weigh in and then?
Yeah, you go for it, man.
Cool. So yes, never accept the first offer because we don't know how high they went with the offer and whether there's anything on the table you can negotiate, and the only way to find out is to negotiate. You will never know unless you do. So always negotiate. Then the question is how do you negotiate pay? So there are multiple different strategies to negotiate pay. But fundamentally, the basic strategy that I always advocate is, first of all, try to figure out somehow what the pay scales and ranges are. Now, Amazon and other tech companies, they are notorious for not willing, in a lot of cases, to disclose what the ranges are. But in the odd chance that your recruiter will disclose the range, the first thing that you can do is actually to ask what the range is. The second thing that we advocate is that you go and research the ranges for your types of role in open resources like levels.fyi, like Glassdoor, with a huge caveat that Glassdoor is completely unfiltered. So, just kind of have a grain of salt there. And another resource that we find useful, it's Blind. That's the name of the social network. You can find it at teamblind.com. It's the anonymous social network that's based out of South Korea, and they've got plenty of Amazonians there, and you can use that network to either research the range. You can either scroll through posts and see if you can find folks posting their offers and asking others to weigh in for similar roles in similar locations. Or you can just outright ask what's the range for such and such role. Or if you already have an offer, which sounds like you do, you can post it there and see what folks say. You can also use a service that the team that owns the Blind network also owns. It's called Rooftop Slushy, where I think you just you pay something like $10 or something, and for someone with access to information to have a look at your offer. So and then they will tell you kind of where it falls in terms of range penetration. So at least that gives you, or hopefully that will give you an idea of what the range is. And then, quite frankly, you just need to use everything in your arsenal, everything that you've got to try and get as far down that range as possible. The most effective mechanism is to get a competing offer with a different business, and it could be any business. When I was negotiating with Amazon, I had a competing offer from a completely different business, not even with high technology, and that helped my boss insist on negotiating a higher offer. Another one useful tactic is that, for example, if you are due to be promoted internally, that will also be helpful. And then I think what else do I have in my arsenal? I would
RSUs over base.
Yes, RSUs over base. Yeah. So Amazon, as you know, Amazon packages will be consistent of your sign-on bonus, your cash base, and your RSUs. And Amazon is notoriously more flexible to inflate your bonus and RSUs than they are to inflate your base. So always my advice is negotiate in terms of total compensation as opposed to just asking for more cash. But that would be my top tips. What about you, Gigi?
Nope, that's it. Oh, just one more resource that you didn't mention is payscale.com. So generally the US is very well served for relatively accurate salary kind of banding. Once you get outside of the US and certainly in Europe, I'm afraid it gets a little bit less robust. But yeah,
there's another resource that I forgot to mention, which is one of our own, and that is our Amazon salary negotiation Q&A. I think if you post this question into the comments to this video, we'll respond with the link. Let's do it that way.
There we go. All right, so we have some extra coaching that's available from our own resources. So yeah, please, Sphinx, if you want to just post this question into the comments and we will get back to you. Okay, thank you for that. I'm going to now move on. First of all, I would like to congratulate Rosemary. So Rosemary's from Maryland in the US, and you have just accepted an offer for an AWS strategic sale. So yay!
Great result.
Excellent. And you say thank you for my videos and deep dive materials. So I'm guessing you might be a day one careers or maybe an old Amazon interview with Academy candidate. So either way, we are absolutely thrilled to have been able to support you, and we wish you a fantastic Amazon career. And don't forget us when you become a hiring manager. All right. Do you want to pick one, Evgeny?
Yes. So I'm just going from there's someone who mentioned that there are some other courses that are offered for $2,000.
Boo! That's what we think for having to pay $2,000. Boo!
We could not have done it.
No, I mean, I'd be sitting on a beach right now, but no, that's not the way we play the game.
Here's another question from Icho. So they have 2 rounds scheduled with 2 training BRs. That would be bar raises and training, I would imagine. Again, I'm sure the advice is to treat all rounds the same, but being a training example for 2 BRs seems odd from the outside. Insights and thoughts. I'm just going to say, I'm just going to have to reiterate our guidance. So, just treat them as normal interviews. But I don't know, Gigi, is there anything odd that they would have 2
that's
Brits?
Weird. So I don't see how you could have 2 Brits. So you've either got the only way of having a Brit on a loop is if they are shadowing or being shadowed by the bar raiser. So it really is only technically possible for you to have 1 bar raiser and 1 Brit on your loop. If you've got 2 Brits, something weird is going on. So double check the actual language that you're seeing in your invitation. And if you're definitely seeing 2 different people with the word BRIT next to their name, go back to your recruiter, because that means you haven't got a bar raiser and you've got to have a bar raiser. So do that, please. Okay, so I'm just going to pick one here from Elena. So you got a rejection after doing a loop for an L4 marketing. Great skill set marketing, best people are marketers, clearly, aren't they, Evgeny? And they told you could reapply at any time. Can you use the same story as for the areas you did well in? I'm not sure you'll know which areas you did well in unless your recruiter's given you more information than they're supposed to have done. But let's just kind of ignore that part of the question. Can you use the same stories? Yes, of course you can use the same stories, because if you apply for another role in the very near future, The reality is you will have had very little time in order to develop new stories. And there is the assumption that you'll have gone with your best stories the first time, and you definitely don't want to go with your sub-best stories the next time, because if your best stories weren't good enough to get you in, then your sub-best stories clearly won't be good enough to get you in. So for sure, you should be using the same stories again. You should relook at your stories and ask yourself whether your stories actually did the best service for you that they possibly could. There are lots of different factors why one might not be considered bar raising at an Amazon interview. Some of them are within your control and some of them are without your control. So I'm not necessarily saying that you didn't get the role and it was kind of all down to your inputs. However, they are the only things that you are in control of. So if you do go back again, I suggest if you didn't do, I'm going to do a bit of a plug for us, sorry. If you didn't do a preparation course like ours, which is not $2,000, you might want to seriously consider it, because the ROI on a course like ours is absolutely astronomical. But even if you choose not to take a paid course, certainly go back over everything that you know and everything that you've learned on our YouTube channel or any other resources that you picked up on, and challenge yourself as to whether the examples that you used the first time round really did land and represent you in the best way they possibly could. If you don't interview again for another 6 months or a year, at that point, I would strongly suggest that you bring in some new stories. It's always the best outcome if you are actually going back with at least some fresh stories. So if it's not for 6 months or a year, I would highly recommend that you pick up some more recent stories that have gone on since kind of your last interview and whenever you interview next. Okay, that's my advice on that one. Evgeny, do you want to pick another one?
Yes. So this one, also from Icho.
Oh, Icho is very popular with you today. Someone else.
I know. I will, but I think this one is a quick one for me. So if everyone votes inclined before the debrief, does the debrief still go in depth on the candidate review? So the answer is it could go either way. So I've been in fully inclined, in reality, I've been in fully inclined loops where the bar raiser basically said, well, that's done then. So let's make an offer, and that's it. I mean, almost, not entirely, but does anyone have any objections, any concerns, and that's it. And then I've had I've been in fully inclined loops where the bar raiser did actually go and probe and challenge some of the feedback, and just to make sure that there isn't a groupthink. So while from my understanding that a really good bar raiser shouldn't just let the loop just slide and just rubber stamp everyone's decision, but I've been in situations where it goes either way. All I would say is, can you control any of this? I would say no. So as far as your interview preparation and performance is concerned, it should not have any influence. Would you agree, Gigi?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. And then, okay, so right, I need to pick someone else,
Okay.
Matt Grady. I'm an anxious wreck over waiting to hear back from my recruiter. I did my loop last Thursday.
Give Matt a hug. Let's just have a little cuddle there, Matt. There we go. It's okay. Shh, breathe.
Always feel free to follow up. Don't be a nervous wreck. Usually it's after the loop, it's 5 business days, but sometimes things will take longer because diaries, life, professional life. Don't worry. The system has already sent everyone a very nasty email. So everyone will get back to you as soon as they can. I've got 2 more from Icho. I'm just going to skip over them. Sorry, E.
I'm just going to pick this one quickly whilst you're looking for another one. So this is from Anne. Hey, Anne. Does Amazon have metrics in place to know if they are indeed the most customer-centric company? How is it measured? Well, I don't think Amazon claims to be the most customer-centric company. It is the mission statement of Amazon to be Earth's most customer-centric company. That doesn't mean to say they are. They might like to think they are. And in terms of how is it measured, there is no one single measure around customer centricity. There are a whole bunch of NPS metrics that are universal metrics across the organization that different businesses using the single unifying metric use to try and judge their kind of customer centricity relative to each other, but it's a little bit fuzzy in terms of its true validity. But no, it doesn't have metrics in place around its customer centricity. There will be many, many different metrics that each individual business unit uses to determine whether they are satisfying their customer needs, because of course, customer centricity in AWS looks very different from customer centricity in retail, which looks very different from customer centricity in Amazon Care. But it was an interesting question, so I thought I'd bring it up. Bit of variety. Interesting question, Anne. Thank you.
Excellent. Here's a new one. How many distinct stories, for example, should I prepare for the loop? And so in terms of the actual pieces of content, I would say it's 2 examples per leadership principle. And so your loop, let's just assume you've got 5 interviews and now 6 loop. So 5 interviews, every interview will typically, again, for a non-technical role, it will probe on 2 leadership principles. So 2 leadership principles times 2 stories. So that would be 4 stories per interview. Now, is there a shortcut? Yes, there is a shortcut. So first of all, you need to figure out which LPs they're going to interview you on, or at least come close to doing that. The way to do that is to ask your recruiter. If your recruiter doesn't answer, then go to our YouTube channel and locate videos where Gigi is teaching all of us how to extract the code words that map to various different LPs from job descriptions, and try to then figure out which LPs you're being interviewed on. And if not, Gigi will do it for you. We run a service that does it. So just post a comment under the video and we will send you the link. And then there is one mega shortcut that you can use. So you can use the same professional context. If you think that you can, you see a situation from your professional history that you can credibly identify more than one leadership principle in action, and that you could potentially spin or sell in one interview, for example, for customer obsession, and in a different interview for invent and simplify, then you should definitely go ahead and do this. And as long as you don't use the same professional context more than twice, not their rule, I think it's our rule. And that way you can shrink the number of professional contexts that you keep in your mind and in your work journal by about half. Anything you would add, Gigi?
Nope, I wouldn't add. Perfect.
Cool.
As always. Okay, so I've got a question that I'm going to pick up here from Devarpan. I hope I've pronounced that right. Apologies to your parents if I've murdered your name there. So you have a session with HR, actually recruitment. It's a different organization in Amazon. So with recruitment tomorrow to prepare for your loop, is that normal? Yes. And well, it should be normal. You're very lucky to have it. It is not extraordinary, but some people don't get the benefit of it. What can you expect? What questions should you expect? So this is very much a session to help you. They're not interviewing you. It's not part of your interview process. What they're doing is trying to prepare you for your interview. So they might offer you an opportunity to do a test run of a question. They might share some information with you in terms of what leadership principles you might be facing into. My suggestion is, rather than think about what they're going to ask you, is that you should prioritize what you want to ask them. So there are a couple of things that I recommend people bring to that meeting in terms of questions. The first one, as Evgeny mentioned a minute ago, is to ask your recruiter if they'll share with you the key leadership principles for the role. Reckon your odds are about 50-50. Another thing that I recommend people ask their recruiter is some information on how long they've been trying to fill this role for. That information can be very useful for leverage if you are lucky enough to get an offer. Something else you might also be able to ask the recruiter is whether they can give you any tips on if other people have previously failed to get through loop, what might have been any themes in terms of feedback on those failures. What are they not seeing in candidates, which means that they're not hiring anybody. Again, that can give you a little bit of a tip in terms of what you might want to think about including in your stories or shaping your narrative. The other thing that you might want to be thinking about, and this is also more around an advantage when it comes to negotiation if you get an offer, is trying to understand how desperate are they to fill this role. Sometimes it really is a burning platform to fill a role because they need somebody in there. That's a very useful piece of data to have when you get to negotiation stage, to understand that it is really important that they fill that role versus yeah, we could easily wait another year to fill this role. It's very strategic. You won't have as much leverage to push on your comp if that's the answer. So there's a couple of things that you could think about using that opportunity with your recruiter to ask. Any other questions that you might have that maybe you might ask people like Evgeny and myself, you should ask your recruiter as well. Never be embarrassed to ask a question. There will be no black marks for asking questions that you think might be sensitive. There are no sensitive questions. Worst case scenario, they apologize and say they can't do. Okay, that's it. Do you want to pick a new one for yourself, Evgeny?
Yes, before I pick a question, here's a public service announcement that comes from Anne, who says that rooftop slushy is no longer, and you know what, she is true. It is true. Rooftop slushy folded buckled under competition.
That's sad. I've never heard of that before. I got quite excited. Actually, do you know what? Thank you for that one, Anne. Evgeny, before you pick your next one, I need to ask a favor of everybody in the audience. So Evgeny and I put a huge amount of effort into these sessions and into our incredibly comprehensive YouTube channel, which hopefully you'll notice is expanding in terms of the type of content that we are offering to you. We put in a lot of effort for you. In return, we have one tiny request to make, and that is that on any of our videos that you watch, you either give us a thumbs up and you like that video, and or you drop in a comment. The reason we ask that is it is considered a positive engagement signal for the YouTube algorithm. The more thumbs up and the more comments any of our videos get, YouTube sees that as an indicator that the content is good, and it will increase our ability to surface to other candidates like yourself. A whole bunch of trash surfaces in front of us in YouTube algorithms. I don't know why, but it does. So we need your help to help us surface to other candidates, both for the benefit of those candidates. So please do that for any videos you watch in future. For this particular video, I'm going to ask you to take just a couple of seconds in order to just like the video. And whilst you do that, I still haven't fixed this, Evgeny. I'm really sorry. I'm going to run a teeny little video just to kind of, cover a few seconds, and then we'll be back with Evgeny's next question. So to do that, I have to swap the branding back to Amazon Interview Wiz Academy. Close your eyes. And we are going to run VC. There we go.
Amazing. This is my favorite. I've seen a few of these jib jabs that you've made.
I have to do some more jib jabs. I need your face in the jib jabs. Can't just be me. Right, go on. You pick the next one then.
Okay, great. Yes, I love this one. Gigi, I think we need to answer these questions. So, Mark, hey, Mark. So my issue is with the LP part. My current job does not give me any opportunities to implement anything close to any of the LPs at work. What advice can you give me to have any LP experience? So I'm gonna go ahead and suggest that actually you probably do have the experience that maps to the LPs, but because the LPs of some of them are phrased in this kind of grand language, a lot of candidates, and it's not just you, but a lot of candidates, they think that you need to be Jeff Bezos or at least Elon Musk to be able to have the experience that maps to these.
Jeff
Exactly.
Elon.
I know. So and unless you've been sending rockets to, if not Mars, but to the orbit of the Earth, or creating new companies from nothing, then there's absolutely nothing that you can do. I can tell you that Gigi and I have spoken with all sorts of candidates, including some folks from academia, some folks from research sciences that are interviewing with Project Kuiper, for example, and folks who worked in the military and a whole bunch of other backgrounds. And all I can tell you is that if you look closely enough and if you spend enough time plucking these experiences out and framing them in order to sell them and pull them apart to recognize those behaviors, then you will see them there. And I think you might own one of our courses. I didn't see it, but I think you might have mentioned that you've just purchased one. And if you did, just go through the LP facets in the LP deep dives section, and there's just a metric ton of examples, both in the main animated educational parts of the deep dives, and also in the mock interviews and in the what interviewers are looking for. Something in there will definitely spark your creativity. And if you haven't managed to do that, get to our premium community, to which you already have access as our premium student in Discord. Ask us questions. We will help you. I'm sure the community will help you. So I'm very optimistic. Gigi, would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything you said plus one. The place to start is definitely the facets and the mock interviews. I guarantee those will spark ideas in your head. They are definitely there. I mean, Evgeny had a story where someone, were they like, their Soul Survivor, wasn't it? They were like a spinning coach in Soul Survivor.
So yes, so I think the business it's a famous US business, but I think they're called Soul Cycle. Yes. Yeah. So oh yeah. So
do that one quickly. Tell him quickly to give him a bit of inspiration that it's everywhere.
So the guy was a graduate of an acting school, and he decided that at some point in time, acting may not be something that's for him. And he was taking his time in between jobs and serving as a spin instructor. I think it's called ride these days, not spin. Yes, it's Sex in the City happened some time ago. It's not spin anymore, it's ride. So he was a riding instructor in Soul Cycle in Seattle, and he booked one coaching session. And during this coaching session, he came up with examples that together we managed to shape that got him an L4, so entry-level job in recruitment. And we found plenty of parallels between him handling customers while he was on the bike and welcoming them into the spin studio, and then him trying to recruit customers into Amazon. So there you go. That's the example. That should bring it home.
Yeah, cool. Right, so we'll move on. I'll quickly answer this one for Kelly K. So Kelly K, you said do temps, so I guess you're a contractor who get offered interviews, go through the process, or is it just a formality to be converted? And then if offered a position, can I ask the average pay I see online for, I don't know what DLS is, but so the bar is exactly the same for external candidates as it is for internal contractors. You have to raise the bar on the leadership principles. It is a very long way from a formality that you will actually get a blue badge as a converter. You have to achieve a bar raising standard. The advantage you have is that you're inside the business already, and you can look at your colleagues around you and look at the level of their performance and much better benchmark whether your examples raise the bar against those performances in a way that an external candidate can't, because they don't have access to that data set. But no, it's a very long way from a formality. And sorry, Kelly, I have to tell you that I have been not inclined to hire a number of contractors who came through in my loops as a bar raiser. If offered, can you ask for the average pay? You do the same as everybody else does, Kelly. You ask for what you believe is a fair valuation of your skills based on the market range that you can get access to. Now, obviously, you're inside the business. It's illegal in most countries to stop employees discussing their pay. So you are possibly in a position where you might be able to speak to your peer group and find out what compensation they're on. Maybe they'll be willing to share it with you. Maybe they won't, but you can certainly ask them. It's illegal to stop your employees from doing that. So again, that's a slight advantage that you have over other candidates, but it's certainly not a formality or a fait accompli. You have to raise the bar, and you are in as good a position, if not better, than any external candidate in terms of negotiating for your compensation. Okie dokie, over to you, Evgeny. You pick your next one.
Here we go. So this one is from Latona. What kind of metrics is appropriate, i.e. positive feedback from 4 out of 5 customers? Yes, that would be appropriate, as are many other metrics that are appropriate, as long as they match the same type of KPIs that you've called out in your goal statement, also known as the task in the STAR, also known as the OKRs in the D1C method, and as long as they're based on facts. I would say the easiest type of metric to operate with and to demonstrate impact in an Amazon interview is something that you can plot on a number line. Because as you can imagine, if you put it in a goal statement that the goal was to achieve 10 and you achieved 15, no one can ever doubt that you had impact and that you were successful. However, not all stories actually, not all professional contexts have that sort of data, and not in all professional contexts that is required. So as long as you are sticking to facts, and as long as your metrics demonstrate the impact of your accomplishments in the way that you impacted either the business, its customers, or its employees, including your team, I would say anything will go. Anything you would add?
Nope, you got it well covered.
Okay.
So what I'm going to quickly do, there are a couple of people I would just like to say congratulations to, because they've mentioned that they've managed to get roles. Let's just quickly do that. SC, you got yourself an offer. Yay, congratulations. But the point that you make, which is another reason why I wanted to bring this up, is you mentioned that you found that our videos particularly helpful, particularly around story length, because you kept seeing content elsewhere saying keep your story less than 1 minute. Do not keep your story length less than 1 minute. I really don't understand who is telling people this. They cannot possibly be experienced Amazonians.
Including Amazonian recruiters. I've had some candidates who are now telling me that some Amazonian recruiters are beginning to tell this to candidates, and we have to tell them otherwise.
Oh, it's just crazy. It's crazy. So I'll quickly explain why we say that, and then I'll point you to our video on our YouTube channel. The reason why we say that's a catastrophic disaster is the Amazon interview is about behaviors, right? There are functional elements if they're testing your skills, but the behavioral element is about how you behaved. How did you do something? It's impossible to articulate context and situation as well as results and get to a level of detail of how you went about doing something in 1 minute. It's literally impossible. The only way you can make that work is if you rely on the follow-up questions from your interviewer to pull out the how from you. The problem with that is you are putting your entire future in the hands of somebody else. If you have a tired interviewer, if you have a not engaged interviewer, if you have a poorly trained interviewer, you're in trouble, because they might not necessarily ask you the right question in order to pull out from you the behaviors that you can demonstrate against the leadership principles. Our guidance is you have to own your own interview process. You cannot rely on somebody else to pull from you the data that is critical to you proving that you can raise the bar. You need to prove that you raise the bar, which means you have to own your interview process, which means you need to get on the table all of the relevant data that demonstrates the how of your behaviors. And do feel free, well, number one, go check out the video on our YouTube channel, which goes into a bit more detail. And also feel free to point anybody that says otherwise in my direction, and I will happily have the conversation with them, along with some of the other bar raisers that we have as coaches here at Day One Careers as well. We are very confident to stand by our argument that 1 minute is a route to catastrophe. Okay, so I'm going to quickly move on. I wanted to congratulate somebody else, and then I'll hand back to you again, and you can pick up the next question. So Gloria, hello Gloria. Congratulations, you accepted a PMT offer at Amazon. So yay, congratulations, Gloria. Right, there's a song called Gloria, isn't there? And now I'm singing it in my head. Gloria, Gloria, can't you see I'm burning? No? Okay, maybe it's just me. All right, but your name made me think of that song, Gloria. I have to sing sometimes, Eddie, you know. Anyway, moving on quickly. Maybe people will skip that bit on the replay.
Right. Oh, okay. So I guess it's my turn. There was a question about does the interviewer in the loop know what others are asking, or whether there's a possibility that you can get the same question from each interviewer. I think the only possibility, well, first of all, I'm gonna say that, you know, there's in this universe everything's possible. That doesn't contradict the laws of physics, but it's highly improbable that you're going to have the same question from all the interviewers in a loop, except for some intro questions like, do you have any questions for me? Or hello, how are you? That sort of stuff. Because every interviewer will have their own set of leadership principles assigned to them. Those do not overlap. And so the questions will not overlap unless it's the same question that you can find under this different leadership principles. For example, under ownership and earned trust, there's the same question that says, tell me about a time when I believe you were unable to meet a commitment or to keep a promise. So that you will find the same question under the same LPs, but that
Excuse me, sir. Actually, there's a slight nuance in that, and this is really important, and this is where it gets tricky. So the question in earns trust is, tell me about a time where you failed to meet a commitment to a peer. The question in ownership is, tell me about a time when you thought you were going to fail to meet a commitment. And that slight nuance of the thought is the difference between the two. But to your point, candidates don't realize.
Candidates are not going to figure this out.
No, absolutely not. So on so many occasions, people come to me and say, I was asked the same question. And I say to them, you probably weren't, but you just don't know it because there's just one little word in the difference from the actual question. So sorry to interrupt, Evgeny, but it was just
no. It's definitely a fair comment, and so I would say that's probably the only situation where you might see that it's the same question. Otherwise, they should not be overlapping.
But in terms of do they know what others are asking, they'll know what leadership principles each other have got, because you can see that through hire, but you have no idea what question they're actually going to ask.
Unless they take notes in a very detailed way, in which case they will drop the question, like the way that I was doing. So I would drop the question and then I would write my comments. But to be honest, it doesn't really matter. Again, it's not anything that you can control. So
yeah, true. Okay, so I'm going to pick this one quickly for Vudata. So you're planning to apply for an SA role in 2 years, where you'll have 13 years experience. Is 13 too big for the role? Does it work against me? So with 13 years of experience, I'd recommend you aim for a senior solutions architect level role rather than just a solutions architect. So that's probably broadly an L6 on the cusp of L7. Just thought I'd give you that quick bit of advice. Do you want to pick another one, Evgeny?
Yes. Hi, Gigi. Thanks for your great videos. I've been recently offered a program manager role in EMEA. Great stuff. Well done. And I'd like to know which of the 3 pillars, base, bonus, RSUs, Amazon most likely to negotiate with. Very quick answer. I think we've answered this before. So RSU and bonus are the easiest. Base is the hardest. So let's just move on and find another question. And that would be, there you go. So Abby's targeting to prepare 25 to 30 sharp stories. And yes, she's with 7 LPs given by the recruiter and 2 more by the HM, so 9 in total. How would you suggest to target prep in this case? Well, I would say if you know the LPs, so it sounds like you've got 9 LPs, great. So out of those 9 LPs, I would say prepare 2 stories per LP. Use the facets in the Amazon Interview Whiz course to understand which stories to prepare. And ideally, you want to have some stories that cover as many of these facets as you can. I don't think there's a need to cover absolutely all of them, but as far as stretchy as you can, go for it. And then look for opportunities to use the same professional context to milk it for two different stories. And that's how you can structure your prep.
Okay, so yeah, I'll just add, Abby, if you're not a day one career student yet, you can buy our leadership principle deep dive courses individually. So if you know all 9 that you're going to get, you can combine you can just pick 9 of them. They're $15 each. And then if you want to understand better how really to optimize how you tell those leadership principle stories, you can buy the behavioral interview with course separately. And that's a really kind of cost efficient way to get pucker quality coaching for that. Okay, so I'm going to pick one. Okay, I'm going to pick this one. And then again, I think we can go for one more, and then it'll be time to wrap and give everyone their incredible freebie. So Mohammed, you applied for the loop. Okay, so you went through loop. The recruiter told me you didn't get the job. She said your examples lack depth and complexity. What does that mean? Okay, so do you know I mentioned a couple of seconds ago about how you can't possibly have a 1-minute answer? This is why you can't have a 1-minute answer, because the Amazon interview requires you to get to a lot of depth in your example. They want to understand what happened, how did you do things? And the lack of depth, Mohammed, I would suggest means that you did not get into deep detail about how you did something. There's the what you did, and there's the how you did it. If you want to understand that a little bit better, there is a video on our YouTube channel that talks about that. In terms of complexity, that's about how difficult was the problem that you were facing, and how difficult was it to solve the problem that you were facing. So again, it would suggest to me that the stories that you told weren't particularly challenging stories. They didn't have much going on, many big challenges, or if they did, that your solution to those problems or your ability to leverage the opportunity was all rather easy and was tied up very neatly in a bow and didn't sound like you had to work particularly hard in order to achieve it. So that would be my advice. If you go back again to the Amazon interview, go back and look at your examples and get to the how, the depth of example, and try and identify the complexity in your stories and make sure that you articulate all of the problems that you dealt with, all of the challenges that you faced, all of the different threads of different things that were going on, all of the different people that were involved, all of the different options that you considered and discarded, etc., etc. But this is case in point as to why a 1-minute example will never get you the job, because you can't get to the depth and complexity required. One more, Evgeny?
One more. So this one is about mistakes or the failure stories. So could we advise the best types of examples of mistakes that you've made? I'm sure they're going to ask. So whether or not they're going to ask is a question on whether that's the sort of question that they're going to pick for a leadership principle. Some questions do call for quote unquote failure stories. One of them is I write a lot, notoriously asking for you to provide a situation where you made the wrong decision. And so so my guidance is provide those situations where you had an opportunity for some profound learning, and where you can demonstrate that you've learned deeply, profoundly, and most importantly, how you have since then implemented that learning, how you put it to action. Amazon is very realistic. They are, they've made some big mistakes themselves, some launched some products that didn't go well. So that is absolutely fine. What they are keen to see is that you learn quickly from your mistakes, you learn profoundly, and that you quickly integrate the lessons learned into how you act and don't repeat the same mistakes again. And I think that concludes it.
Cool. So, as we said we would, we have the best. Oh, let's can I pop Louise back into the comment section there, Evgeny? Drop her back in so that we can put our banner up. There we go. Right. So, I'm on this side now. It's usually you that's on that side because I'm usually the one that's
I know,
late.
right?
So, hang on. Which way around do my fingers go? so bad at this. Right, everybody, silliness over. You have to go to this URL here where you will get an amazing, and I mean it genuinely, I don't big us up very often, but this is an amazing course. It's a deep dive on the customer obsession leadership principle. It will tell you about the four different facets of the leadership principle. The facets is a learning model that is unique to us here at Day One Careers. We created it, and it is a way that we, using our expertise, has simplified those highfalutin Bezos, Musk kind of language for the leadership principles and turned it into language that normal people like us can actually understand and see in ourselves and in our career history. So customer obsession has four facets. It's got the most of all the leadership principles. It will teach you all about that. It will then also tell you literally what the interviewer is looking for in your examples. Like, you could literally use it as a tick list. And then there is a mock interview of me interviewing me, so you can see how it all comes together in an interview. Completely free. It's quality. It's none of this kind of half-baked content that people send to you, which isn't quite enough for you to be able to use, and so you buy more. If you use this, I guarantee you will nail your customer obsession questions in your interview. And if you like it, which we hope you do, we have amazing value other courses available to you from just $15 US bucks. Right. On that note, I think we're done for today. It's getting very dark in my office here. You've always got such good lighting, Evgeny.
I can't look at it anymore. I'm looking forward to just closing my eyes.
Oh yeah, you've been blinded by some kind of
completely
light ring.
More than one.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining. Thank you for the brilliant questions. We hope you found it useful. If we didn't manage to get to your question, we really apologize. We have to go and eat with our families now, but please do drop any questions that we weren't able to get to today into the comments of any of our videos, and we will get back to you ASAP. Those of you who have secured themselves roles, congratulations. We are incredibly proud and privileged to be able to have helped you. If you have interviews coming up, we wish you the very best of luck, and we hope to see you next week. Take care.
Bye.